Hello. So, this is part two of my experience of living with my narcissistic father, and this will be the final video that I'm making on this series. And so, I'm gonna start with what happened after I left the hospital, which I ended with um, in the last video. So, this is when I really started to realize that something was seriously wrong with my father and that I should probably do something different. So it started when he first picked me up from the hospital, and um, we had gone to eat because I was really hungry. I think it was like lunchtime or early dinner. And we were talking about something, and he sort of somehow slipped the conversation of religion in again. And he was telling me that, bad things happening are, God's will and stuff, and God has a reason for it. And so I asked him, well, is there any reason that God would allow children to be um, abused or molested? And he said, yes. And so he knows, or he knew, that I had experienced um, sexual and physical abuse as a child by my former stepfather. And when I told him that in the past, he had no like real reaction or anything to say. But when I asked him this time, um, is there a reason that God would allow children to be physically and sexually abused? And he was like, yes, it's to teach them um, teach them a lesson because they sinned. And so then I was like, wow, that's really terrible, um, that you would, say or think that. It just like uh, really blew my mind. And it also showed, I guess, the reason that he had no sympathy or compassion for what happened to me when I was a child either. Um, so I, so that was like my first hint that something was wrong. And then the second one is when I was in therapy. I was seeing a mental health counselor, and I was telling her about, my father and everything and my experiences with him. And she told me, he sounds um, like a narcissist and a sociopath. And I knew, of, I mean, I kind of knew what like narcissism was and like what sociopaths were, but I didn't know like any real details about it. But I started Googling it, and all the information I found, especially the information about narcissistic fathers, fit him like perfectly. And I was like, wow, this explains so much about my situation. Like I experience a lot of these things, like 99% of them. Um, and so we continued to live together, talking in therapy helped me out. That was a really good therapist. Um, and the other big breaking straw, or the big problem, I guess, that also let me know something was wrong, was I was planning a um, like a short trip, just 4 days, and I had been um, saving my money and planning for it, and then at the last minute, something happened that I had to pay for. I don't remember if it was something with my car or whatever, but I had to pay for this thing, and then I was short like $100. And so I asked my father if I could borrow the money. I was still working, and I said I would be able to pay him back. And he told me, yes, I could borrow it. And so I was, really excited about this trip. And I was so used to him saying that he forgot things that I told him that I wanted to make sure he didn't forget this. So this was like 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave. And so every day I would talk about the money or remind him that the trip was coming. And he would confirm, like, yeah, okay, I know, I'm not going to forget, stuff like that. And so I did that every day for about 2 weeks. And so the night I'm supposed to leave, which I remember, it was actually July 3rd, because it was going to be a 4th of July trip. So the night before I'm supposed to leave, I go into his room. Him and my stepmother are in bed. And I'm like, hey, do you have the money now, or do you have to go get it in the morning before I leave? And he says, what money? And I'm like, the money for my trip. And he was like, I never said I'd give you money. And I said, well, yes, you did. Remember, I was reminding you about it. And so then he just like starts yelling, and he's like, I don't have 100 effing dollars. And even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you. And we never had that conversation, and just like going on and on and on. My stepmother asked him to stop cursing, but of course that did not help. But I was like just so flabbergasted, because I'm like, I know we talked about this for 2 whole weeks, and all the other times he would do that, I would let it go, because I'm like, well, maybe he did forget, or maybe I didn't really say what I thought I said and stuff like that. But this I remembered, because it was a consistent 2 weeks daily thing. So I was like really upset, and I just went into my room and closed the door for the night. Ended up being able to borrow the money from from a cousin, and I did pay them back really quickly, and I was able to go on the trip and have a good time. Another thing that he did in the kind of the same time frame was, I was working my job, and my hours were evening to night. So I worked like 5 p.m. to midnight, something like that. But I generally got off between 11 p.m. and midnight. And my car, I was still having problems with my car. So what I would do was I would pay an Uber or a taxi to take me to work. And then if my father was in town, then he would come pick me up. And if he wasn't in town, then I would pay for my own Uber or taxi to get back home. And he's a night owl anyway. He always stays up late, and so him being up at 11 or 12, it wasn't just to get me. Like, he would have been awake watching TV anyway. But he told me one day, oh, you need to quit your job, because it's an inconvenience for me to come pick you up, and you don't like your job anyway. So you need to quit today, right now. And so that was my day off. And so I called and told them I was quitting, and I was convinced that I didn't like the job. Looking back, I mean, it wasn't going to be a long-term choice, but I did enjoy it until I was able to find something better. And I also felt really bad, because I had never just quit a job before, without notice and for no reason, because I just always felt like that was, that's not a professional thing to do. But I quit the job because he told me to, and I started almost immediately to look for another one that had, better hours or something that wouldn't seem like such an inconvenience. And then I wasn't even out of work like a week before he started calling me lazy for quitting my job, and telling me that he wasn't the one who told me to quit, and I just chose to do it on my own because I didn't want to work. And then he also said that I should look for like smaller jobs, because I wanted to start working full time. and he didn't believe that I could work full time because of my mental health. I was actually better at this time, but he was, blaming my mental health for why I was not. He didn't think I was capable of working because it would just be too stressful for me, and I should find a part time job and just focus on taking care of the house. But I did end up finding a job, which I'm still, which I'm still doing. I've made it a career, and when I was at when I had started this new job, I was still living with him, and I had only been working like maybe a week or so, and then he told me once again I needed to quit that job that I was at because I was wasting time and it wasn't going to amount to anything. But I told him, no, I think I'm going to keep this job because I actually enjoy it. And that was a big thing for me because I never say no, especially to him. But then he thought my decision was stupid, but he let me continue to just do it anyway. So with this job, I had better pay, and I was planning to leave because I'm like, I'm not happy here. I want to be somewhere else. Like I'm ready to go. And so during this time when I was thinking about like where I wanted to go, and I had found an apartment with some roommates that I didn't know, but to me anything was better than being there. And while I was planning this, I was going to secretly leave. So I was going to wait until he had, gone back to work over the road, and then I would have all my stuff packed and be gone by the time he came back and never speak to him again, probably, or, hopefully not see him for a long time. And during this time, I was using his computer um, one night, I think just to browse online. And I saw that he had tried to email some pictures to my grandpa's email account. And so at this point, my grandpa had been dead for like a year. And I thought that was weird. I'm like, why would he try to send something there? So I opened it up and I found pictures of these two girls, teenage girls in bathing suits. And I didn't know the girls, and I knew he didn't know them either. So I thought, okay, that's weird. And as I was looking through the computer, I found all these images of child pornography that was just terrible. And I was just disgusted and outraged because now I realized that he's a pedophile. That was actually not the first time I saw those images, because then I remembered I saw certain images on another computer of his when I was about 12. But at the time didn't realize how bad that was, not to the extent. And so I kind of like put it out of my mind, but then it came back that this had been a pattern of his for years. And then when this happened, when I found those images, it was like really late at night, maybe like 2 in the morning. And I tried to get some sleep. I don't know if I really did, but I woke up the next morning and he was still in town, but he had gone to run some errands. And sorry, I had to let my dog out. But he was still in town and had gone to run some errands. And while he was gone, I took his laptops. He had two small laptops, and I walked to the police station because the police station was just a mile from our home. And I told the police what happened, and filled out a report. I told them that I could just open the computer and images for them, or for at least one computer, because it didn't have a password or anything. But they told me, don't worry about it. And while I was at the police station, my father texted me and accused me of stealing his laptops and saying that I need to bring them back. And I texted him and I said, well, I didn't steal them. I took them to the police station. And he was like, why would you do that? You have no right to take those computers, and um, being angry and cursing at me over the text messages. And so I told him, you know why I have the computers at the station, and just, I don't remember the exact words, but it was basically telling him that I am leaving and not to ever contact me again, and I will be back for my things. So a police officer escorted me back to the house, and I just grabbed like a few things that I could fit in a bag. I didn't take all my stuff yet. And my stepfather, not the one that I've made videos about, but I have another stepfather now, really great guy. And I went to go stay with him and my mom. Um, and so then we had, I communicated with my stepmother to get my things. I did tell my stepmother what happened, and she was surprised, and she mentioned, some um, emotionally and psychologically abusive things that he had, kind of been doing to her, some pretty big red flags. But she is extremely religious and does not believe in divorce, so we'll basically probably stay with them. I know they're still together now, but I did communicate with her when it came to getting my things, and so I went back to the house some days later. She had left the key for me. Nobody was there, and I got some of my things, but I realized a lot of things of mine weren't there, particularly like clothes and stuff. And I searched all over the house, and I couldn't find them. Um, and so I got what I could and left. And then I believe I was telling my aunt about it, my father's sister. I told her, everything that happened, and also the part about, I think he like threw my stuff away. And I guess she must have spoken to him, because he ended up bringing the things to my stepfather's house, all the things that I thought were missing. And he also told my stepfather, he was like, well, I'm sorry to dump her off on you like this. But my stepfather, being, a good guy, he was like, well, you're not dumping her off on me. I love her. I don't mind her being here. And then when I talked to my aunt again, she said that my father told her that all my stuff was in a shed. We had a shed outside, and that I just didn't look for them good enough, because he would always tell me I half-ass do things, I half-ass look for things. But I'm like, well, no, that's not true. He put them in the shed on purpose. We never used that shed for anything. There would be no reason for me to go in the shed at all. So he put them in there knowing that I wouldn't look in there and I wouldn't find them. So in the aftermath, I have now been no contact for about 3.5 years, almost 4. I am a lot happier. I still deal with some stuff like, guilt sometimes, a lot of second guessing myself, all the stuff that comes with CPTSD and narcissistic abuse. I told his family, all, our cousins and stuff, and a lot of them, most of them don't really keep contact with him. They see him, or, the same time I've seen him, I've run into him twice at funerals of other family members. And so they'll be like cordial, but there's no more like inviting him over for holidays and parties and stuff like that, like how they used to. There are 2 relatives I know who still keep close contact, even though I told them everything about him and what he did, not just the porn, but stuff he did to me. So that's their own thing. It is pretty disappointing that there would be people like that who would just, you hear um, honest accounts of how vile someone is, and you still go out of your way to make contact with them and, invite them to your house for parties and different stuff like that. Um, but I guess people will just do what they want to do. So that has been my experience with narcissistic fathers, or my narcissistic father. This went on a lot longer than I want to, so I'm sorry. I hope you watched to the end. If you have experienced anything similar, I would love to hear your thoughts, or if you have any questions. I still didn't cover like everything, but I feel like I covered like the big stuff. So if you have any questions, I could answer them. And I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.